In 1996, I read an amazing book written by two guys called Womack and Jones called Lean, or Lean Thinking. And that was a book that basically talked about the idea of doing work to identify what it took to see flow in organisations, particularly in organisational processes, in order to increase customer value. And the idea behind that was a noble idea, that the idea that if we could experience more flow, then customers would be delighted, and businesses would profit, would be profitable. People who were operating those customer processes would feel that they were doing something meaningful. And that was a noble intent. And I spent from about 96 to about 2004, 8 or 9 years, deploying the tools and practice of what I now call first generation Lean and Six Sigma, and also business process management, or BPM. So the intention was noble, but the outcomes weren't always as noble. Something was missing. In the Lean and Six Sigma approaches to identify flow have focused on the opposite of flow. That's what I would argue now. If you think about it, in our 300 years of industrial business design and our methods of doing business, we've focused on seeing organisations as problems. So we look to fix things. That's why we apply spanners to something that's broken. We break things apart. So in the world of business process management, which is the idea of looking at business processes, again with the noble idea of identifying flow, what's happened is that we don't tend to look for flow. We tend to look for the opposite of flow, which is waste or non-flow. So when something's not flowing, you experience things like, disruptions and waste and errors and blocking points, overruns, high cost, and so forth. And that's kind of wrapped up in this Lean word called waste. We now are moving into the age, as I said in a different talk, of innovation, not just continuous improvement. Innovation is and it's being morphed and fostered, brought into focus now with this whole area of the emerging social business, which is the idea of bringing people together for social good. What about this word good? The intent behind Lean was to increase customer value. The word value comes from the Greek word axios, meaning good. Another word for good is kindness. Interesting. So the idea of Lean, if you like, and the idea of improving processes is to extend good, is it not? Does that make sense? But if we're looking to extend good, which also is what innovation is new forms of good, that's what it is, then if we eradicate waste, do we experience good? Is good the absence of waste, or is good its own force? David Cooperrider, who has done so much wonderful work in the last 20 years to refocus the thinking of business management and leadership from focusing on fixing problems to identifying strengths, in other words, what works, and extending that and reconfiguring those strengths to innovate, to achieve more capacity and more good through what we call the appreciative inquiry lens and practice. Cooper Ryder has pointed out that so much of management practice and leadership degenerated over the last 100 years into avoiding problems and fixing problems rather than on spending time on that which they wish to accomplish. And Collins wrote a book, Jim Collins, Good to Great, which a lot of people know of, Good to Great. So Good to Great implies let's move from good to great. So if we're looking to move from good to great, why do we focus on bad? If you focus on bad, the best you'll get is the restoration of status quo. But if you want to get to great, you don't understand bad, and you don't get great from eliminating waste. All you get is no waste. To give you an example, it would be like going into a garage. I went into a garage, a dark garage the other night, looking for some wood to get on the fire. The light wasn't on. Pitch dark in there. Now what I wanted to experience was light. What if I had looked for the causes of darkness? I wouldn't have found the light. What I wanted was more light, more good. Instead, I searched for the light switch, and I switched it on, and the darkness receded. That is the focus of second generation lean. I'm part of a group of people worldwide. David Shaked has written a book who are coming together now globally to discuss and to develop the tools around what we call second generation lean, Six Sigma business process management, which looks to identify what works, strengths, and extend it. My son Thomas, who's filming with me today, cut a tremendous cartoon a few months ago about one of the very first times that I deployed the strengths-based approach to lean and business process management in a company called Fastest Freight. I really would encourage you to check out that video on our website. And that was I won't tell that story in detail now because that's not a different video, but just to give you a quick heads up, Fastest Freight was in trouble. They were getting poor customer complaints, a lot of them. They were getting contracts taken away from them. In other words, they were seriously seeing their profits eroded. Now, classically, and I was called in to help them. And of course, classically, I would have looked at the problems. In fact, the CEO said, "Jeremy, I've lined up all these customers for you to come and talk with, and I want you to talk to them about their problems. They've got all these issues and issues to do with the poor quality. When stuff went bad, not well. When we as a company did badly. When we didn't provide the service. When something didn't turn up. When it wasn't what the customer expected. That's classic lean, looking for waste." And I said to the CEO, I said, "John, why are we doing this work?" He said, "I want to get profitable." I said, "Is that the real reason why we're doing it? Do you want to get profitable again?" He said, "Well, actually, there's a bigger idea. What's that?" He said, "I want to grow the business internationally. The profit will help us to do that." "Why do you want to grow the business internationally?" He said, "Because I want to make a difference. I want to be an employer of choice. I want to take our business into some of the countries where there is poor employment. I want to be able to do something, provide jobs for these people." That was the reason. That's called growth. And he said, "I want to come up with some innovative ways of doing that." But the conversation wasn't about that at the moment. It was distracted by the problems. I went and sat down with the very first customer. And I said, "Mate, before we talk about the problems, I know you've got a whole bunch of things you want to talk about. Can I ask you a question? Which is, when have you experienced the most outrageously good service from Fastest Freight?" He looked at me. Now, I didn't realise at the time that what he was doing was actually switching from the problem lens or part of his brain to the possibility part. But he told me this wonderful story, which again is on that incredible video that Tom's put together about how on a Friday night one of his customers needed an urgent delivery of the weekend, and he thought, "I can't go to Fastest Freight because they just won't come to the party." And he called that company at 5 o'clock at night, and the controller wasn't there. Got hold of a truck driver who basically picked up the phone and said, "Yeah, mate, I'll come over and I'll help you." And he did. He swung over. He was going to this town. He had an empty load. didn't worry about the paperwork, hopped off the truck, got on the forklift, helped the customer to load the truck. Even delivered it to the new customer that night. The best service that customer had ever seen. And as I watched him tell this story, he began to lift and get excited. And I said to him, mate, how good was that? He said, that was great. Wow, that was great. And I said, if that experience, if that one example, because we talk about in Appreciative inquiry, that as being a positive deviation. If that positive deviation became the norm, what's possible? What would happen to your business? He said, mate, I've got 6 freight companies that I play off against each other. That's what we do in this business. We don't trust each other. As soon as one does something bad, I punish him and I bring someone else in. Then I have to do the same thing. It's driving me nuts. I said, so what would you like to be doing with your time? He said, I'd love to grow the business. Instead, they're into very sophisticated problem solving or problem management. To cut that story short, beautiful story, we got those positive questions, those positive examples into a room with the business owners, with the truck drivers, with the customers, and they co-created a whole new way of experiencing that peak great example of great customer service. In other words, what we experienced there was the real idea of flow. So the idea behind the best customer service is the experience of flow. What we saw from that example from the freight company, what so excited that customer was that he was emotionally engaged with that. He was a truck driver that got out of his truck and went out of his way to help. They were co-creating the solution together. They were doing work emotionally together and producing a great rational result. So that was something that the lean stuff that I did in the first iteration never picked up. We never mapped the emotional greatness in a process. We never mapped the intrinsic motivators. We always looked for waste. If I got and sat down with that customer and asked, what don't you like about that service? I would never have discovered that story. I would never have been able to find out, or we wouldn't have found out, what it was what greatness actually looked like. We would never have found the key to turning on the light. Instead, we would have been groping in darkness. 6 months later, that team came together to innovate a new way of working together that extended that random or occasional act of greatness or good into the normal way of doing business, and they became profitable and now are basically working internationally. It's a pretty cool story. So we're moving now into the second generation of mapping the best in processes, and that's something that I'm passionate about. Business processes, I'm passionate about customer processes, but we're moving into looking at mapping flow. Flow when you see the whole of the hands, the head and the heart of the person providing the work connected with the needs, rational and emotional of the customer. So you're seeing this oneness, this sense of flow, providing wonderful services, great products and meaningful work. That is flow. So we developed with our colleagues internationally the tools to apply those in organisations. First in the local government organisation, Health and Public Safety Unit, about 3 years ago, which resulted in significant reductions in cycle times, in a 150% increase in service turnarounds for planning permits, and these guys won an innovation award in Victoria. It's pretty cool. And since then we've modified and sharpened those tools, part of an international collaborative group doing that. Even to the extent now where we have organisations who are looking to map joy in their organisations, because joy is associated. Joy is the highest level of happiness at work. And people who are happy are most engaged and are most, these are the guys that basically are the contributors who make the difference to the bottom line. So what I'm saying is that in the social business world we're in now, this issue of engagement is important. The young kids coming through, the Gen Gs, they don't want to talk about waste or type 1 or 2 mooder. They don't want to talk about continuous improvement. They want to talk about social good. How can we do more social good? Well, if you want to do social good, you first find out what that good looks like and you extend it to become the norm. So please, if you're in a service business, or you're into innovation, or you want to lift beyond the problem of spending time on that which you wish to avoid and more time on that which you wish to accomplish, and you want to really create more value and to experience flow in your customer processes and your work, come and talk to us at the Emotional Economy at Work. Cheers.